And how about legacy and estate planning?
Well, this is all part of legacy and estate planning.
Okay.
In those documents, and of course there are many more depending on each individual's situation. You might want to establish trusts, you might want to establish endowments, you might want, there's just a myriad of things that go into what we call legacy and or estate planning. All these documents work together to convey your final wishes and directives as to, and this is a tough word, but it's the truth, as to the disposal and or resolution of your estate. From how do I want to be buried, where do I want to be buried, to bills need to be paid, to who gets the house, or are you going to sell the house and split the money and go on a nice vacation? So this is all part of creating your legacy and or your estate plan. People call it, they are synonymous terms. Some people call it legacy planning, some people call it estate planning. But these are all the documents that become part of that plan. And contained in that plan are all the things that we'll talk about here in a bit of, okay, well, I have, $5 million in this investment account and I have $3 million over here. What happens with all that? Who gets what and how much and for how long?
Yeah, this is so good. As you know, there's a lot of families, the head of household, he passed away, and then no one knows what to do with, there's no will. They have a couple of houses, here and there. They don't know what to do. It make it so easy if there's a will and there are some documentations that people can follow.
But without question, I mean, personal story. When my grandfather died, when my maternal grandfather died, my grandmother didn't even know how to write a check. Now, he died back in the 70s, so life was a little different. We didn't have debit cards back in those days because he took care of all of it. He took care of all the money, all the house. My grandmother didn't even know how to write a check. We had to teach her how to write checks. All of that could have been avoided had my grandfather done some very simple things: a will, power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, so on and so on and so forth.
Right. And this is a very tough topic to talk about, but how do you convince, someone, hey, do you have a will? Because no one wants to talk about this.
No, they don't. No, they don't. But hopefully, MD, the dialogue goes just like the dialogue you and I are having.
Right.
And hopefully that through that dialogue, when I look at them and say, look, if we don't do this first, I can teach you how to get rich in about 7 minutes. Getting rich really isn't hard. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
What I say to them is staying rich is the tough part. And those are the documents that ensure that you stay rich, but more importantly, if something bad happens to me or to whomever, the people that you've worked so hard for your whole life, the people, places, and things that you love, stay rich.
Right.
And that what you want to have happen to your stuff is exactly how it happens. So generally, when I put it like that to people, and it can be a little hard, and I can come off as a little mean and a little abrupt, but that's okay. That's my job.
Yeah.
My job is to kind of talk to people about things they don't like talking about.
Yeah.
They get it. They understand it. And most times they'll look at me and go, fine, Scott, what do we need to do? And we get it going and we get it done. But the amazing thing about it, MD, is once they go through the process of sitting with the attorney and really thinking about it, this is the first step in learning how money works. It's probably the first time in their lives that they have ever really sat down
Yep.
and looked around.
Yeah, that's true.
At
That's true.
all the stuff
That's true.
they have. Excuse me. And then realize, wow, we got to figure out what's going to happen with this. The kids are going to be stuck with a garage full of junk.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Yeah.
And so that's the first step. And what they realize is they come to realize that all that work and all that toil and all that blood, sweat, and tears, they've done pretty well.
That's true.
And then they begin to realize, I don't want some judge deciding whether my kids get, the China set or nothing at all.
Right.
And so it helps them begin to realize that their work, they've been working for a reason. That reason just never kind of bubbled up to the surface. And it sounds kind of weird, but I take a lot of pride in having my clients look at me after they go through that and say, Scott, thank you for making us do that. We didn't realize, number one, how much we had, but more importantly, that we had done nothing to make sure that what we wanted to have happen would happen.
Yeah.
And it creates a peace of mind. It creates a peace of mind. So that tough conversation gets easier because now it's like, well, if I get hit by the bus, I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go play in traffic now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. So, as you know, a lot of people, they just work paycheck to paycheck. They don't make a lot of money. Some people don't have their own homes. They're renting. Maybe they have a car, they have a full-time job. And they're like, Scott, why do I need a will? I don't have, a lot of wealth yet. So what do you say to them? You say what?
Well, it's not about being wealthy.
Right.
Even someone that perceives themselves as, I don't have anything. I don't have $1 million in the bank, and I don't, live down, at West Palm Beach, Florida on the beach. And, so why do I need a will?
Right.
What I say to them is, well, you do have responsibilities that will need to be addressed. Look around. You do have some stuff. You do have a car. You do have some furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And, in reality, you're probably going to live to be a ripe old age, because a will is not a one and done thing.
Yeah.
I'm not old, but I'm older. But I've revised my will over the last 40 years, probably 8, 10 times. Why? My life has changed. My daughters are now both in their 30s, have their own families. So, what I wanted to have happen in 1995 is not what needs to happen in 2013. The idea is you get those documents in place, your will, your power of attorney, your healthcare surrogate, you get it all in place. And you start when you're 28, because you're probably going to live to be 90.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about understanding how money works, and understanding that the first thing about how money works is it changes.
Right.
And it can change every year, especially when you're younger. You can if you're fortunate enough to go to school, you get your first job, you're probably there for 4 or 5 years. Then you get your next job, and before you know it, you're 38 years old and you're an RVP somewhere, and you're not thinking like a 25-year-old. And suddenly you look around and you've got a partner, a couple of kids, maybe 3 or 4 dogs, and you're not driving the Yugo anymore. You got a Mercedes out there, and now you have the $750,000, and you're making a $500,000 a year. And it's a little more difficult. If you get yourself in the habit of doing these things, the earlier the better, the easier it gets as your life changes.
Right.
And needs change and wants change, and your family grows.
Yeah.
So what I say to them is, it's not about being Jeff Bezos or somebody rich. It's about letting people know what you want to have happen should something happen to you.